Hey, welcome to this week's live masterclass. We're going to call it a masterclass today, but it's a little bit more informal than that. And if you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Amanda Bullitt. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, anti-diet dietitian, and nutritionist, and certified intuitive eating counselor. And I help women in midlife undiet their lives by savoring food in their body. So these weekly sessions are me sharing either Q&A, tips, things that I've seen in working with other women in midlife in my private practice, or offering you some nuggets of wisdom that I think might help you in that undieting journey and towards getting off of diets and learning to thrive in midlife, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So if you're new to this world, you might not have discovered yet that I have a free downloadable guide called the Thrive Guide that I've used on my website for a handful of months now, and to really help you get started with what does this mean to even undiet. You've been dieting for years, following different plans and protocols and wellness tips here and there and strategies. What does it mean to not follow those things? What do you do instead? So today I'm going to give you a different option, and that is all based on the Thrive Guide. So wherever you're watching this today, you can see links down below, and there is a downloadable link for the free Thrive Guide that will give you some space to reflect and journal on some of the strategies that I'm going to talk about today, especially as you start to put them into practice in your life. And I really hope that you'll take advantage of that, because these are some really great first steps to start opening up your mind to how might you approach health in midlife from a different perspective than following all the do's and don'ts when it comes to food and exercise. So let's just dive into the guide. So I'm just going to walk you through the guide. So if you're listening to this replay, you could be replaying it on the Savor Food and Body podcast as you're completing the downloadable guide. And again, the link to get that guide is right down below. So you could follow along there if that's helpful for you. If you are just now watching this live stream and you want to click on your printer and print off that guide, you can do so. Again, you can do that by just downloading the link below. So let's see, let me get there it is, too many tabs open. Okay, so I created this kind of tagline for my practice and my business, and it's called Savor Food and Body. And if you've been around here for a while, you've heard me say that phrase for a long time. It's the name of the podcast, it's the name of the blog, and it's really at the root of everything that I do. So Savor is actually an acronym that stands for the process that I walk my clients and group coaching, counseling folks through. So we're going to get into that in more detail. In fact, there's a masterclass that I'll be teaching next week at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, March 29th. And it will go into those strategies a little bit more in detail. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But for now, let's get started with this Thrive Guide. So by downloading this guide, I think it's a real strong and powerful commitment to say, hey, I'm tired of living the traditional diet culture way of looking at health, and I want to do something different. I want to have a different relationship with food in my body, but I also still want to honor my health, which I think is a big, important acknowledgement, validation when we're in midlife, because we might not love how our body is looking, but we still want to learn how to take care of it. And if you've had a lot of experience, like a lot of my clients have, you've done all of those diets before, and you've been through the roller coaster of weight gain, weight loss. Maybe you've seen your metabolic health also go through that roller coaster, and you're like, what now? What do I do now? So these simple strategies, there's 6 of them that I'm going to walk you through, will offer you some guidance and clarity and hopefully motivation to kiss food guilt and body shame goodbye forever and reclaim your freedom with food and your body. And what that all really means is more energy, better sleep, better moods, hopefully less hot flashes and night sweats if you're in that late perimenopause, menopause space, better bone health, better cardiovascular health, all of those things that are so important once you reach 40s and beyond. So let's start walking through these strategies. And the first strategy that I often will invite clients to do and strongly suggest that they do is throw out your scales. So, and that means body scales, food scales. If you're a baker and you still want to measure flour for making bread, like that's cool, but don't measure the food that you're going to eat. You've been there, you've done that, and there's a variety of programs out there that might still encourage that. But I'm going to invite you to explore something different and throw out all of those skills because diet culture is really a systemic form of oppression that causes you to think you can't be thin enough, healthy enough, young enough, beautiful enough, anything enough. It's really centered on perfectionism. And fat phobia, or the fear of getting fat, contributes to the oppression of people in larger bodies. It's also called weight stigma, weight discrimination. So when we're really hung up on these numbers, then we're really fueling this level of oppression and discrimination. And these messages are so insidious. They make up the language of how we talk to each other, how, especially as women, how we bond together. I just had a great podcast recording with Iona Holloway. She will be on the podcast in a few weeks. And we were talking about how women really bond over comparing weights, comparing serving sizes, comparing these numbers in our lives. And really, we have so much more that we could be doing with our time. So, this is often why you probably have scales in your house, why you're confronted with scales when you go to the doctor, which, by the way, you don't have to get weighed at the doctor unless you're going to be taking a medication that is dosed based on weight or anesthesia. There are very few reasons why you would even need to get on a scale at the doctor. So, side note, I was just in for my annual physical this week, and I just asked if I could self report my weight, and then they were fine with that, which was great because it is a little bit stressful to kind of go into the whole song and dance of why you're choosing not to get weight. I have lots of resources. If you have any challenges with that and you want some resources or scripts to use when you go to the doctor, go to alpinenutrition.org and hit the contact button at the top of the page and email me there, and I'm happy to help you with that. So, side note, this is why it's a good reason to get rid of scales and stop focusing on numbers as much as you can. And there's definitely a level of freedom that comes with that. So, as we go on down to, if you're following along in the guide, that you've got a bit of reflection time here. So you can list out a handful of diet culture messages that you've received over the years that relate to those numbers, the number on the scale, the number of serving sizes you should be having, the number of size your clothes should be, all of the things. This is a really great space here in the guide that you can reflect on that. And I think it's really powerful sometimes when we get these ideas out of our brain and onto paper, and we start to see, like, wow, how much of this has been a part of my life. And I'm not above that either. I've been swimming in the same culture that you have too, and it is really impactful when you start making a list of all of these messages that you've gotten about food and your body and size and weight. And in a way, it also takes the pressure off of you, in that if you've struggled off and on with roller coastering with your weight, and especially as you've entered into midlife and you've seen your weight change, you can really start to internalize this: why me? What's wrong with me? I've been eating this way for a long time, or I've been moving my body consistently and exercising, and now all of a sudden my body is changing. What the hell? And so we can really start to think like, it's my fault, but it's not your fault. How you think about that body change is coming from those cultural messages. So take some time with this first strategy. Consider, moving your scale, ditching it, donating it, getting rid of it, and start small too. Like, just commit to a week. I'm not going to do scales for a week. I'm not going to weigh myself for a week. Or if it's not something you normally do for every week, but maybe it's every month, say, okay, next month, at the beginning of the month, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, I'm not going to weigh myself this month, and just see how that sits with you and reflect on any of those feelings or emotions that come up with you. Okay, moving on to strategy two. This can be a fun one, hopefully, especially as we're moving into a new season, at least here in the Pacific Northwest. Spring is knocking on the door. And this strategy is called go shopping. So, keeping old clothes that you hope to fit into again only does two things. It encourages you to keep living your life based on diet culture's definition of health, and it keeps you feeling shitty about yourself when you can't live up to those unobtainable perfectionist ideals. And spoiler alert, nobody can live up to those ideals. Even there's that age old saying that even the models, even the actors and actresses look at pictures of themselves that have been airbrushed or filtered and go, man, I wish I looked like that in real life. So, again, thinking about what are those messages that kind of keep you hoping to get into these old clothes. And so here's the practice for you to try. So as you go through moving into new season of clothes, looking back at the clothes that you had from winter, did you wear them? Why didn't you wear them? Was it a you just don't like them anymore, or they don't fit anymore, or the fabric doesn't feel good on your body anymore? Whatever the reason may be, but take a trash bag or a box and bag up all of those clothes that you're not wearing anymore. And some people call these their skinny clothes. These are the clothes that they're using as a measure of if they're doing what they should be doing with food and exercise. Are they following the diet? Are they following the rules? And then they'll be able to get into these quote unquote skinny clothes again. So don't keep that baggage literally around. Just ditch those. Put the bags, the boxes in your car, drop them off at your nearest Goodwill or any other donation center, and then go and hit the mall or your favorite stores or go home and do some online shopping if that's your thing. I highly recommend trying on clothes with fabrics that feel delicious on your skin. It may be helpful to play around with flowy styles and wider waistbands. Leggings are terrific for this, especially in midlife when we might be going through some pretty big body swings related to the hormone fluctuations that our bodies are going through on a monthly or semi monthly basis. Wide waistbands with leggings or skirts are fantastic, and so are the flowy tops. And as you head into the new season, this is a great time to maybe play around with some new styles. I did a really great episode with Daisy Gillespie, all on style and style based on your personality and your body style, not what the general public is saying is fashionable. And you can get to that episode on the Savor Food and Body podcast too, or give Daisy a follow on social media as well. So this will, by going through this exercise, this practice, will support greater size variance, comfort, and confidence as your body adjusts to not dieting anymore. So as you move away from weighing, measuring, counting, calculating your food that we practiced in strategy one, as you move away from that, your body is going to fluctuate. So having a variety of sizes in your closet, having a variety of styles in your closet is going to be really helpful to keep you at least in a comfortable space with your body as you start to move into this new way of relating to food and exercise. Getting a few key pieces that keep you feeling fabulous can make a dramatic difference in confidence without having to remake your entire wardrobe. So, as an example, I've got one short black skirt. It was a gift from a very dear friend, actually, that she was handed down from a friend of hers. And it's wide waistband. It drapes nice. I love the fabric, and I live in it 24/7 in the warmer months, probably 9 out of 12 months, even with some tights underneath it or leggings underneath it. Once the weather gets a little bit cooler or in the cooler days of spring. So, having some really key pieces that you feel good in and you can layer up, layer down, dress up, dress down is really important. So, your body will eventually find its natural size through the process of savoring food in your body. I know it can be super frustrating at the beginning, especially as you're working on making peace with food and practicing allowing all foods to your table. Different conversation for a different time, but definitely have patience and have trust that your body will even out into a size that it's meant to be. And this isn't an easy process. I can hear you in the back of my head going, "This is crazy, Amanda. Like I've always done it this one way for decades." And you might have memories tied to some of those clothes that I'm asking you to get rid of. If you're experiencing grief as you go through these steps, that is completely normal and expected. So, in your reflection sheets in the guide, in the Thrive Guide, this is a really great place to kind of voice some of that grief that you're experiencing and validate that those were really good times and good memories that you might have had in some of those clothes. But I want to also invite you to think about what did it take for you to continually fit into those clothes? What did it take in terms of how much emphasis and energy and thought you had to put into your food or your exercise, and what did it take away from your life because you were focusing so much on, I have to maintain this one size. So, what thoughts come up for you as you bag or box up all those old clothes? And what's it like to try on new clothes that honor your current body size or current styles that you're kind of liking? Just reflect on that in the Thrive Guide below. By tossing out your old clothes and getting clothes that feel comfortable on your here and now body, you're really taking a very profound step towards increasing your self compassion and self confidence. And as another side note, I invite you to do the same thing with your undergarments too, your bras, your underwear. I mean, especially bras. As bodies change, as hormones fluctuate, person's going to need several different sizes of bras or styles of bras probably as well. So that we're not just talking about your outerwear here, but think about your more intimate garments as well. Okay, moving on to the next strategy, invite all foods to the table. So I kind of alluded to this already about making full permission with foods. And think about what thoughts come to mind as you gaze at a plate of pasta or fresh baked bread with gluten, like legit fresh baked bread, not the diet version of bread. Cookies, chips, a bowl of ice cream, going down the candy aisle, a bowl of M&Ms. M&Ms, tortilla chips, and potato chips are a common theme in my practice. And for me, when I was healing my relationship with food in my body, it was cookies, it was bread, granola was a big thing for me. You might be thinking when you think about those foods, like, oh, it's too many carbs, it's too much sugar, it's too much fat, it's packaged, it's processed. Those foods aren't healthy. I'll get diabetes if I eat too much of these foods. I'll get fat if I eat too much of these foods. I'll become quote unquote obese. And if those thoughts come up for you, again, totally normal. Think back to that first strategy where we talked about how messaging from diet culture is part of what creates these thoughts in our mind. And that's not just from popular media, it's from our medical providers, it's from our friends, our families. Like we're all in this together. And so you could be getting these messages from a variety of places. So I just want to make a note about the term obesity, which was created by diet culture as a way to pathologize people in larger bodies. And it's currently used as stigmatizing and discriminatory language. So you often hear me refer to it as the O word, or you saw me do quotes if you're watching this video, because I don't want to participate in that pathologizing of people in larger bodies. And the obesity was all built around the BMI, which has got lots of problems in terms of scientific evidence in terms of relating to health. So again, another topic for another time. But I want to invite you to read more about that, why many of us in this anti-diet, non-diet, undieting space feel pretty passionate about that word obesity and what we choose to use instead. So, learning to increase your awareness around these food beliefs, where you've heard them before, I invite you to get curious about your current beliefs about why some foods are considered good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, And where does this moral judgment of food come from? The other interesting thing about this is that when we put moral judgment on food, when we eat that food, we internalize that moral judgment onto ourselves. So, for example, sit down and have a plate of cookies, we might think, like, oh, I've been so bad. I'm eating this plate of cookies. Well, what our brain also hears is, I am bad because I'm eating these cookies. I have no self control because I'm eating these cookies. Same thing can be true when we're eating foods that we think we're being so healthy. Like, oh, I've been so good today. I had a salad and I had the very little dressing or dressing on the side, and I haven't had many carbs. Like, I'm being so good today. And again, what our brain hears is, I'm being good because I'm eating in this way. So I want to invite you to think about how often you speak to yourself in those terms or about food in those terms, and how it makes you feel in your body when you relate to food with that moral judgment stance on things. So, reflection time again, if you're following along in the guide, jot down, what beliefs do you have about food and where did you learn those beliefs? What foods do you consider off limits or only once in a while foods? Just jot them down. As I haven't said this before, this is a really important strategy for it to be a no judgment zone. So we're just exploring what those beliefs around food are that you have. What are some of those off limits foods? Or you could even write down, like, these are the foods I think I should have every day. The most healthy foods that you should have every day. Just explore how you relate to food in this way, what beliefs you have around food. And when we keep it into a judgment free exploration zone, it gives you a lot of insight on your relationship with food in your body. And it's important to acknowledge that current food beliefs that you have, and by challenging them, while that is hard to do, it gives you a profound step forward towards allowing all foods to be on your table. So, by doing this challenging work of noticing which foods you think you should or you shouldn't be having, eventually you will come to a place where the morality around those foods just bites the dust, really. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of practice, and that's something that we work on in the small group coaching program or group counseling program that I will be running again in April. And there's more information on that in a link down below wherever you're watching this. Okay, on to the next strategy. This is one of my favorites, and it's called Take a Mindful Minute. And a lot of my work with individuals, with women in midlife, centers around mindfulness. Because I don't think that we can truly understand our hungers, our satisfaction, our fullness with food or with exercise if we don't shut up and listen to our bodies. And you can't shut up and listen to your body if you can't get into a mindful space. And we're not talking about 30-minute meditations or anything like that here, although that can be really helpful. But in the beginning, that can feel like too much. So we're literally talking about take a minute. Take a minute and ask yourself, what are you truly hungry for? Are you truly hungry for food? Are you truly hungry for connection, or need to move your body or get out of your office and get some fresh air? What are you truly hungry for? And mindfulness helps to reconnect with your need for self nourishment, self care, and get you back to the basics of what's important in your life. So here's a practice that you can try out today if you have a moment, or tomorrow, or over the weekend even, is you find a quiet place to sit comfortably, ideally outside, but I'm the outside person if you haven't guessed by now. Close your eyes, take some big deep breaths, fill your belly with capacity, like practice feeling what that feels like to just really fill your body with breath. Then release the breath, take another breath while saying the phrase, what do I, in your mind, or you could try to say it out loud too. And then as you release the breath, saying the phrase, I need at this moment, in your mind. So as we breathe in, what do I need in this moment? That's what it may look like. repeating this breathing meditation, mini meditation for about 5 breath cycles. That'll take about a minute, maybe a little bit more. And as you focus on your breaths, try to notice any thoughts that come to mind without judgment. Again, we're just here to be curious observers, not judging what comes up for us. Like I said, that might be a food. It might be you want to connect with someone or do some solo reflection time, which a great place for that is in your Thrive Guide. And the writing down the thoughts that come up for you while you do that little mini breathing exercise, that mindful minute, write down like what came up for you in terms of what did you need to care for yourself in that moment. Was it food? Was it getting some movement? Was it having some rest? Was it doing something mindless and getting your away from your to-do list and your screens? What was that like for you? Just jot down some of the ideas that come up. And then the follow up reflection is, what does self care or self nourishment mean to you? Is it a snack, some gentle movement, soothing lotion on your body after a bath or a shower, talking with a friend, playing with a pet, napping in the sunshine, my personal favorite? Create your self-nourishment list in the box provided on in the Thrive Guide. And then you have this list that you can go to anytime when you're kind of feeling like anxiety is getting ahead of you or the stress of midlife is getting ahead of you, you're feeling a little bit burned out. You can come back to this list and say, hey, what do I need in this moment right now? What could serve me to help bring my nervous system down a few notches? There is a practice, a tool that I teach both group counseling participants and private counseling participants. It's called the self nourishment menu. I've talked about it a little bit here in these live episodes, but it's something we go into a lot more detail in either private counseling or group counseling. And it takes this idea of creating a list for yourself, a self nourishment list, kicks it up a few notches and helps you apply it to your daily life. So, again, if you're interested to learn more about that, you can click on the link below and get on the waiting list for group counseling that's going to start in a few weeks. So, one of the things that I find with people when they're trying to practice this mindful minute is that we forget. It's only a minute and we can blow past maybe our need to do this on a regular basis. So, setting a peaceful chime or alarm on your phone or computer 3, 4 times a day at regular intervals can be really helpful to kind of bring you back into your body and out of your to-do list, your hamster wheel, your hustle culture, and bring you back into like, hey, remember, check in with yourself. What do you need? You can use the sound as a reminder to take that mindful minute and asking, what do I need at this moment? And again, that's a good time where you can refer back to that self care or self nourishment list that you made in the reflections in your Thrive Guide. So moving on to our next strategy, we have just a couple more. This one is called overstuffed and undernourished. So it has become socially acceptable to avoid emotions by manipulating food intake, either by restricting food or binging on food. And side note, the binging usually follows the restricting. So when life feels out of control, it's really easy to turn towards food or exercise as a way to try to regain control or at least over your body. And midlife is classic for this because we're feeling a lot of different body changes, a lot of emotional upheaval that is also related to hormone fluctuations. And it can really start to feel like, I don't even know who this body is anymore. And it can start to feel out of control. And when we put that with just the stage of life that we're in, with maybe having kids, having teenagers, having aging parents, being more accelerated in your career or where you are as a business owner, whatever that looks like for you, long term relationships that you've had, there's a lot going on in your life externally that can also leave us feeling out of control. But as you already know, these efforts of really restricting food or upping your exercise usually don't pan out in the long term. And those emotions are still lurking in the background. Meanwhile, you're frustrated with yourself and probably have a stomach ache if that restricting food led towards binging food. So, taking a look back at at fullness in that mindful minute, and noticing what does it feel like in your body to feel like things are getting a little bit too full, too out of control, and how could we kind of bring that nervous system, reduce that stress level back to basics? Maybe as you take that mindful minute, you might recognize I'm ready for a nap, or I do need to go move my body. This might not have anything to do at all with food. And oftentimes when we're getting to the places of too full with food, that is rooted in a place of I'm not full somewhere else in my life. Not always, but can be related to that. So, this gets into a little bit of coping with emotions with kindness, as the intuitive eating principle states, and how to help you walk through that. Again, this is something that self-nourishment menu practice that we use in private counseling and group counseling really helps you explore this on a little bit deeper level. So if you're someone who is frequently too full after eating, or you shy away from fullness at all costs, either way, what can that be meaning about what else is going on in your life? So in your reflection sections in your guide, you can take some time and just kind of sit with that. Again, judgment-free zone. Compassionate curiosity is the name of the game here. And if you feel like your life is too full, how can you take a few things off your to-do list and incorporate more satisfying and pleasurable activities? And oftentimes I see this with people if they feel like they're getting too full with food, meaning there's just too much also going on in their life that it was hard to check in with hunger and satisfaction to begin with, then this is the perfect um, tool to use to kind of say, hey, what could I offload of my to-do list? What could I outsource out to someone else, or get a hand with, or delegate to someone else? And then thinking about what do you need more or less of to feel more satisfaction and pleasure in your life. So again, if you spend time getting too full on food, what does that maybe relate to you're not full enough with elsewhere in your life? Maybe you need more play. Maybe you need more downtime. Maybe you need more solo reflection time. By recognizing what areas of your life need nourishment beyond food, you become more in touch with your emotions and set boundaries for getting your needs met for greatest satisfaction and pleasure, which is so important. And another favorite strategy here is to go play outside. So this one obviously is a classic for me. There's a reason that my business is called Alpine Nutrition. But I think for many of us, the idea of nature therapy is so profound. And just whether that's gardening, planting some new spring flowers in your yard, or going out for a hike or a walk some way, that can really allow you to connect with your body in a less self conscious space. So, I want you to think about a time where, if you remember what it was like to move your body freely without being self conscious. Maybe you were a kid. Maybe you haven't felt this freedom and pleasure with movement since you were a kid, running around and playing without awareness of your physical appearance. For many women, and myself included, this was before we hit puberty. So, this is quite a long time ago. So take another mindful minute, find a comfortable seat, close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you, and take a few deep breaths and think back to a time when you enjoyed moving your body in a playful way. What were you doing? Were you with friends, family, by yourself? Where were you outside? Was there water nearby? Anything like that? And notice any sensations that arise in your body as you think of these memories. Remember to notice without judgment. We're just exploring here. And then, when you're ready, after that mindful minute, come back to the present moment. And as you probably guessed it, there's some opportunity for reflection in the Thrive Guide. So there's some boxes there where you can describe what that movement memory was like for you in as much detail as feels comfortable. And what would it take to you for you to find joy moving your body in your here and now body? So we're looking at this from a little bit different perspective than just exercise to earn and burn calories. We're looking at using exercise, using movement as a way to connect with your body instead of disconnect from the way that it looks or functions. Be really kind with yourself, especially if you haven't done a lot of movement or exercise in a long time, or haven't felt comfortable doing so, or have some physical limitations. Like, we are not talking about go hard or go home here, or even aspiring to that. We're talking about finding joy in moving your body. And by doing so, you're more likely to want to move on a consistent basis. So, moving your body for the sake of feeling less stiff, stronger, more empowered, having more endurance, being able to play with kids or go for hikes with your friends. Backpacking season's right around the corner if there are any fellow backpackers watching. And so, thinking about movement from that different perspective of how does it feel to be in my body and moving my body versus I should be doing this movement to earn or burn my calories and my food. So again, that was a lot of thinking. I highly recommend downloading the Thrive Guide below wherever you're watching this so that you can walk yourself through all of these strategies on your own time. And they might take you a whole week. That could be a great way to walk through this guide is just take one strategy a day and walk through it and do your reflections, do your exploration, and just know that this is the beginning steps towards undieting the life. Beginning steps to look at food and your body from a different perspective, and looking at health from a different perspective. And that health and size are not mutually exclusive, meaning being small does not mean being healthy, being larger body does not mean being unhealthy. So there are a lot of concepts that we're working on rewiring and rewriting beliefs that you're looking at reimagining in a different way. And this guide will walk you through all of that. So tons of opportunity for questions and wondering how this applies to your life specifically. And again, you're always welcome to go to alpinenutrition.org and hit contact at the top of the page and email me there and ask away. I would love to hear where you're coming from with food in your body and support you to get started on this journey. So, no strings attached. Again, there are a few links down below. Download your Thrive Guide and work through these strategies on your own time and at your own pace. You can also sign up for the waitlist for our group counseling sessions, small group counseling. I only take 12 women at a time, and that will start again in April. And it's a 6-week small group program. And there's also a link down below too, where you can join a masterclass that I'll be hosting next week on Wednesday, March 29th at 5 o'clock, all about on why it's difficult to lose weight after 40. And you've sat through this whole training, you can probably imagine that you're not going to hear the same reasons from me about weight loss that you're going to hear from other people. So I can't wait to share that with you next week. Again, you can sign up for that masterclass down below. So with that, I hope you have a great week savoring food in your body, and I'll be in touch soon. Take care.